What if the shaking we are seeing in Venezuela, Japan, California, and other parts of the world is not just a strange coincidence? And if the Earth is not suddenly becoming more dangerous, why does it feel like earthquakes are happening everywhere at once? Before we get into what is really happening, hit like if you want more clear, fact-based explanations of major world events, subscribe so you do not miss the next update, and share this video with someone who has been asking the same question. Because by the end of this video, the answer may be very different from what you expect. Earthquakes can make the entire world feel smaller. 1 minute, people are going about normal life. The next, buildings are moving, roads are cracking, alarms are sounding, and millions of people are watching the same frightening images on their phones. Recently, attention has been drawn to powerful earthquakes and seismic activity in several different regions. Venezuela has faced a major earthquake sequence. Japan has experienced another powerful event and tsunami warnings. California remains under intense scientific attention because of the long-term dangers surrounding its major faults. Other countries around the Pacific have also experienced significant tremors. Put all of those stories together, and it is easy to reach one terrifying conclusion. Maybe something unusual is happening to the planet. Maybe one earthquake is triggering another thousands of miles away. Maybe the Earth's crust is entering some kind of dangerous new phase. But the real story is more complicated, and in some ways, more important. The first thing we need to understand is that earthquakes are not rare events on a planetary scale. Earth is constantly moving beneath our feet. Tectonic plates are shifting, colliding, pulling apart, and sliding past one another every day. Most of those earthquakes are tiny. Some are so weak that human beings never notice them. Sensitive instruments detect them, scientists record them, and life continues normally. But occasionally, the energy released is enormous. That is when an earthquake stops being a number on a scientific screen and becomes a human disaster. The recent activity described in the source material shows exactly why location, depth, buildings, population density, and preparation can matter just as much as the earthquake's magnitude. Consider Venezuela. The earthquake sequence there is important not simply because of the magnitude, but because of how quickly the events occurred and how close the shaking was to vulnerable communities. The source material describes 2 major earthquakes striking within less than a minute, with one reported at magnitude 7.2 and another at 7.5. Imagine what that means from the perspective of someone standing inside a building. The first shock arrives. People are trying to understand what is happening. Furniture moves, windows shake, the floor seems to roll beneath them, and before the human brain has even processed the first event, another powerful shock arrives. There is almost no time to recover. That is one of the most frightening things about an earthquake sequence. People naturally expect the danger to end when the first major movement stops, but earthquakes do not follow human expectations. The ground does not care whether you have found your family. It does not care whether emergency workers have arrived. It does not care whether a building has already been damaged. The geological process simply continues. And this brings us to one of the most misunderstood parts of earthquake science: magnitude. When people hear that one earthquake was magnitude 7.2 and another was magnitude 7.5, the difference can sound small. It is not. The magnitude scale is logarithmic. A change of one whole magnitude represents a 10-fold increase in wave amplitude and roughly 31 times more energy released. That means the difference between magnitude 6 and magnitude 7 is enormous, and the difference between 7 and 8 is enormous again. So when an earthquake moves into the upper 7s, scientists are dealing with an event capable of releasing an extraordinary amount of energy. But even magnitude does not tell the whole story. A magnitude 7.5 earthquake far beneath an unpopulated region can produce a very different outcome from a magnitude 7.5 earthquake close to the surface beneath a crowded city. Depth matters, distance matters, soil matters, building design matters, and preparation matters. This is one of the biggest lessons hidden inside the global earthquake story. The same geological force can produce completely different human consequences, and Japan provides one of the clearest examples. Japan is one of the most earthquake-prone countries on Earth. It sits in one of the most active tectonic environments on the planet, where several major plates interact. Earthquakes are not an unusual visitor there. They are part of everyday geological reality. That means Japan has spent generations learning how to live with something it cannot prevent. The country has developed strict seismic building practices, early warning systems, evacuation procedures, public drills, and technologies designed to reduce the damage caused by violent shaking. The source material describes a powerful Japanese earthquake that generated a tsunami warning and prompted evacuations along vulnerable coastal areas. Yet the final human consequences were dramatically smaller than many people might expect from an earthquake of that size. That contrast is incredibly important, because when an earthquake strikes, the headline often focuses on magnitude. But the magnitude is only the beginning of the story. The second question should always be, what was built above the fault? Japan has spent decades answering that question. Buildings can be designed to move. Foundations can incorporate systems that reduce the transfer of violent ground motion. Transportation systems can react automatically to seismic warnings. Schools can teach children what to do before an earthquake ever happens. Families can know where to go. Emergency agencies can practice before the real emergency arrives. None of this stops an earthquake. It changes what happens after the earthquake begins. And this is where the Venezuela and Japan stories begin to connect. Not because the earthquakes are necessarily connected underground. They are not. The deeper connection is human. One country demonstrates what happens when a powerful earthquake strikes a vulnerable environment. The other demonstrates what decades of preparation can accomplish. And now we need to talk about California, because California represents a different kind of earthquake danger. It is not necessarily about an earthquake happening today. It is about what scientists know could happen eventually. The San Andreas Fault has been watched for generations. It marks a major boundary where enormous tectonic forces are constantly interacting. The source material describes research using geological evidence and long-term modeling to examine stress along Southern California's major fault systems. But there is a crucial warning here. High stress does not mean scientists know the exact day an earthquake will happen. They do not. Earthquake prediction is still beyond our ability in the precise sense people often imagine. Scientists can estimate probabilities. They can identify dangerous faults. They can study historical earthquakes. They can measure deformation and stress. They can build models. But they cannot look at a fault and say, the earthquake will happen tomorrow at 3:17 p.m. That distinction matters because dramatic earthquake headlines can create a false sense of certainty. The scientific message is usually more uncomfortable. The risk is real. The timing is uncertain. And preparation is still the best defense. That is especially important for Southern California. The region contains enormous population centers. Los Angeles and surrounding communities contain millions of people. There are highways, bridges, railways, water systems, electrical networks, gas lines, hospitals, schools, apartments, offices, and homes. An earthquake does not need to destroy every building to create chaos. It only needs to disrupt enough connected systems. Imagine losing electricity. Then imagine losing water. Then imagine roads becoming difficult to use. Then imagine communications becoming overloaded. Now add fires. Now add thousands of people trying to reach family members at the same time. This is how a natural event becomes a regional emergency. And this is why earthquake preparation cannot begin after the first major shock. It has to begin before. There's another city that deserves attention here, Istanbul. The city sits near the North Anatolian Fault, one of the major active fault systems in the region. The concern surrounding Istanbul is not based on the idea that earthquakes are somehow spreading from Venezuela or Japan. It is based on the city's own geological setting and its own history. The source material describes a major fault segment beneath the Marmara Sea and points to the long-term concern over a major earthquake affecting the Istanbul region. It also highlights the vulnerability created by older buildings, dense development, and the enormous scale of the city. Again, the important point is not to turn a probability into a prediction. A probability is not a countdown clock. If scientists say there is a significant chance of an earthquake within a certain period, that does not mean the earthquake is guaranteed to happen during that period. But it does mean ignoring the risk would be irresponsible. And Istanbul shows why urban planning is becoming one of the most important parts of earthquake science. The planet has always produced earthquakes. What has changed is how many people live in large cities. Human civilization has built enormous population centers directly on or near active tectonic zones. Tokyo, Los Angeles, Manila, Jakarta, Mexico City, Istanbul, many other cities face similar risks. That creates a strange situation. The Earth is not necessarily becoming more dangerous. Humanity is simply putting more people and more infrastructure in places where the Earth has always been dangerous, and that changes everything. Think about a fault line hundreds of years ago. There may have been forests, open land, small settlements. Today, the same region might contain millions of people and billions of dollars in infrastructure. The fault did not become more powerful. The consequences became larger. That is why the phrase earthquakes everywhere can be misleading. There are earthquakes happening every day, thousands of them. Most are too small for humans to feel. The source material notes that earthquakes of magnitude 6 or greater occur globally many times each year, meaning several significant earthquakes can appear within a relatively short period without representing a worldwide change in tectonic behavior. So, when several earthquakes appear in the news during the same week, our brains immediately search for a pattern. That is normal. Humans are pattern-finding machines. We see Venezuela, then Japan, then California, then the Philippines, and then another tremor. And suddenly the events feel connected. But the scientific picture is different. The Pacific Ring of Fire helps explain why so many earthquakes appear in the same global news cycle. This enormous arc around the Pacific Ocean contains many active plate boundaries. Japan is there, the Philippines is there, parts of Indonesia are there, New Zealand is there, the western coasts of the Americas are there, California is connected to this broader tectonic environment. The source material identifies the Ring of Fire as one of the planet's most active seismic regions and explains why monitoring it will almost always produce multiple earthquake reports. So perhaps the most important question is not, why are earthquakes happening everywhere? The better question is, why are we noticing them more, and why do some become catastrophic? The answer involves technology, population, media, and vulnerability. Today, an earthquake can happen thousands of miles away and appear on your phone within minutes. Videos spread instantly. Emergency alerts spread instantly. Satellite images spread instantly. News organizations compete to report the latest development. Social media can make separate events feel like one giant global crisis. 15 or 20 years ago, many people would never have heard about a moderate earthquake in another country unless it caused major destruction. Today, you can watch the ground shake almost in real time. That changes our perception of frequency. It does not necessarily change the Earth's behavior. And there's another reason we need to be careful. Fear can become addictive. Every earthquake headline can create another headline. Every aftershock can become another warning. Every scientific study can be turned into a prediction. Soon, people start believing that the planet is entering an unprecedented period of instability. But science is more cautious. The evidence described in the source material does not support the idea that earthquakes in Venezuela, Japan, and California are all part of one coordinated global event. Instead, it emphasizes that these regions have their own independent tectonic systems and risks. That does not make the situation harmless. It makes it understandable, and understanding is far more useful than panic. Because once you understand the real risk, you can actually do something about it. If you live in an earthquake-prone region, the first step is simple. Know what to do when the shaking begins. Do not wait until the earthquake happens to learn where your safest locations are. Heavy objects should be secured. Furniture that can fall should be anchored where appropriate. Emergency supplies should be available. Water is essential. Food is important. A flashlight matters. Basic medical supplies matter. Communication plans matter. And knowing how to shut off utilities can be valuable if local authorities advise it and you're trained to do so safely. You should also know that mobile networks may become overloaded. Your family may not be able to call you immediately. That does not necessarily mean something terrible has happened. It may simply mean millions of people are trying to communicate at once. Having a simple family communication plan can reduce confusion. Choose a meeting point. Know who to contact outside the affected area. Know the safest route away from damaged buildings. And most importantly, understand that after the first earthquake, the danger may not be over. Aftershocks can be powerful. Damaged buildings can become more dangerous. Broken glass, fires, landslides, downed power lines, and damaged roads can create additional hazards. This is why preparation matters so much. And this is where earthquake early warning systems become fascinating. They do not predict earthquakes before they happen. Instead, they detect the earthquake after rupture begins and can sometimes provide precious seconds before the strongest shaking reaches a particular location. The science works because different seismic waves travel at different speeds. The faster waves arrive first. The stronger shaking arrives later. That difference may only provide seconds. But seconds can be enough to stop a train. Seconds can be enough to move away from a dangerous object. Seconds can be enough for a person to drop, cover, and hold on. Seconds can be enough for an automated system to take action. The source material explains this principle through the difference between faster P waves and slower, more damaging S waves. And that is one of the great achievements of modern earthquake science. We may not be able to tell you exactly when an earthquake will begin, but once it begins, technology can sometimes help us react faster. And that changes the meaning of preparedness. Preparedness is not about believing disaster is coming tomorrow. It is about accepting that someday, somewhere, the ground will shake. Maybe it will be small. Maybe it will be moderate. Maybe it will be extremely powerful. But preparation gives people options. Without preparation, an earthquake takes options away. So the story unfolding across these different regions is not simply about rocks moving beneath the Earth's surface. It is about how modern civilization responds when the ground beneath it suddenly refuses to stay still. There's also a larger lesson here. Venezuela, Japan, California, and Istanbul should not simply be treated as separate news stories. They show 4 different sides of the same global problem. Venezuela shows the danger created when a powerful earthquake meets vulnerable infrastructure and limited capacity. Japan shows what decades of preparation can accomplish. California shows how a fault can remain a serious long-term threat even when nobody can predict the exact moment of rupture. Istanbul shows the enormous challenge of protecting a dense modern city built near an active fault. Together, these cases reveal something that is easy to forget. The earthquake itself is only one part of the disaster. The other part is everything we build around it. A city can prepare, a government can prepare, a family can prepare, an individual can prepare. None of those things can stop tectonic plates from moving. But they can change what happens when they do. So, is the Earth suddenly breaking apart? No. Is there evidence that earthquakes in Venezuela, Japan, and California are all being caused by one mysterious global mechanism? The material we are examining does not support that conclusion. But should we take the current earthquake stories seriously? Absolutely. Because every major earthquake is a reminder that the ground beneath modern civilization is not as stable as it feels. We spend our lives walking on streets, driving over bridges, sleeping inside buildings, riding trains, and working in skyscrapers. Most of the time, the ground feels perfectly still. That feeling is an illusion created by scale. Underneath us, continents are moving. Plates are grinding past one another. Faults are accumulating stress. Mountains are rising. Ocean floors are spreading. The planet is alive with motion. We simply do not feel most of it, until we do. And when that moment comes, preparation becomes the difference between confusion and action. So the real warning from these earthquakes is not that the world is ending. It is that complacency is dangerous. The Earth does not need to become more active for earthquake risk to increase. Cities can grow, populations can expand, buildings can age, infrastructure can deteriorate, people can forget emergency lessons. And all of that can happen while the tectonic plates continue doing exactly what they have been doing for millions of years, moving. That is why the next major earthquake may not be the biggest earthquake ever recorded. It does not have to be. It only has to strike the wrong place, at the wrong depth, at the wrong time, when the wrong systems are vulnerable. And that is something every earthquake-prone city needs to understand. The question is not whether humanity can stop the Earth from shaking. We cannot. The question is whether we can become better at living on a moving planet. Japan has shown that it is possible. California has shown that preparation must continue, even when the disaster has not happened yet. Venezuela has shown how devastating vulnerability can become. And cities like Istanbul remind us that the challenge is still enormous. So when you see another earthquake alert on your phone, do not immediately assume the planet is entering some mysterious new era. Look deeper. Where did it happen? How deep was it? How strong was it? How close was it to populated areas? What kind of buildings are there? What are local authorities saying? And most importantly, what can people do now? Because fear tells you to run. Knowledge tells you where to go. Fear tells you that everything is connected. Science tells you to examine the evidence. Fear makes you feel powerless. Preparation gives you something you can control. That may be the most important message of all. We cannot control the tectonic plates. We cannot command a fault to stay quiet. We cannot stop an earthquake from releasing energy. But we can build stronger structures. We can improve warning systems. We can train children. We can educate communities. We can reinforce infrastructure. We can create emergency plans. And we can stop treating disaster preparation as something that only matters after the disaster begins. The ground will shake again. Somewhere, sometime it will happen. The real question is what we will have built before that moment arrives. If this video helped you understand why earthquakes can appear to be happening everywhere at once, take 1 second to support the channel by leaving a like. If you know someone who lives in an earthquake-prone area, share this video with them. And if you want more clear explanations without unnecessary panic, subscribe and stay with us. Because the next earthquake headline may be frightening, but understanding what it actually means is far more powerful than fear. And remember this, the Earth has been moving for billions of years. It is not angry. It is not warning us. It is simply being the planet it has always been. The challenge is whether we are prepared to live on it